Hello gamers and welcome back. I'm Rob, of course, our Warshack if you want to call me by my in-game name, and we are getting closer and closer to the mean streets of Gadgetzan release. Super excited about this set. It's opened up a lot of new kind of mechanics and abilities that I didn't expect. I kind of knew they were gonna follow something similar to LOE in my opinion, how that shook things up with the Reno Jackson being, it built decks around it, right? Like Reno Jackson solely built a deck, I want to say in almost every class, there was a Reno deck variant that was pretty good. He built his own class off one card. And I think this expansion is going to have a similar effect. So looking at Shaman releases since our last reveal, we've got Jade Lightning, the 4-drop, deal 4 damage, summon a Jade Golem. So there's been a lot of Jade Golem kind of card effects, and we went over, I believe, an episode or two ago, and we weren't too sure what a Jade Golem was. And now that more and more cards have been released, I've dug a little deeper, and I've found out exactly what this mechanic does. So stick with me. So, when you summon a Jade Golem, when you have a card that says summon a Jade Golem, it's going to summon a 1-drop, it's going to cost 1 mana, and it's going to be a 1/1. Then, when you use another ability that's going to summon a Jade Golem again, so let's say you play 2 Jade Lightnings, for example, your first Jade Lightning is going to summon a Jade Golem that costs 1/1, 1 mana, 1/1, and your second one's gonna it's going to cast a second Jade Golem, and that Jade Golem is going to be a 2-drop, 2/2. So as you keep using card abilities to summon Jade Golems, they will be continuously +1/+1 in stats all the way up. From what I know, the mana cost will be +1/+1, or the mana cost will cost 1 more, and the health and HP will go up by 1. So obviously, the more times you cast Jade Golem or cards that give you Jade Golem, the more powerful this guy is gonna be. So I'm thinking as soon as you hit around your 5th or 6th Jade Golem, it's gonna really start benefiting you, because a lot of the cards that they released that summons a Jade Golem cost less than 4 mana. So essentially you're getting the card you played plus whatever your Jade Golem happens to be at that time. And if we were playing a Jade Golem deck, which I'm assuming that this card is gonna fit into, you're going to be able to summon Jade Golem at least 8 times, which means they have to deal with a 1/1, a 2/2, a 3/3, a 4/4, a 5/5, and all the way up. So it'll be really it's basically a control deck destroyer, right? Like a control deck can handle large minions, but a control deck cannot handle an onslaught of these Jade Golems. That you're gonna, you play you play a Jade Lightning, let's say on your 6th. Jade Golem summons a 7/7 or a 6/6, and then you just follow up the next turn, summon a 7/7, 8/8, and it's just going to get out of hand really quickly. It's similar to like the Lord Jaraxxus ability, right? The second you can keep pumping out those 2-drop 6/6s, your opponent just can't deal with that kind of pressure. It's just too many high-drop minions for a really cheap cost, which is essentially what a Jade Golem will turn into after you've played the ability enough. Heading into the next, we'll see a lot more of those cards in the next couple classes that we go over. But let's finish off Shaman. I think there's one more in here. Or this one and another one. It's a 4-drop, call in the Fishers. Summon 4 1/1 Murlocs. So basically you're getting a 4-drop 4/4 out of the deal, but they're separated into Murlocs, and as we know, within the Shaman class, and even within the Murloc kind of card archetype, there's a lot of buffing abilities. So whether you're playing I don't remember, it's like any Fin is awesome or something like that, and it gives all your Murlocs +2/+2. I think it just gives all your creatures +2/+2, and it costs 1 less for every Murloc, if I'm correct. And on top of that, you've got like War Leader, you got Cold Light Oracle, and so this card obviously will fit into Murloc Shaman. Will Murloc Shaman be very good? I don't know, but if it is, this card will most likely be found in it. Pretty much wraps it up. There's not much more. Murloc cards are very gimmicky, guys. It's not really a super viable deck right now. It's I would say, just a fun deck to play. You'll win a couple games, most likely lose more than win, but maybe after this expansion it'll get a little bit better. Heading to the Devolve, I think this is the last one in the Shamans, and this is a 2-drop, transform all enemy minions into random ones that cost 1 or less. So it's basically the same thing as Evolve, but it works for your opponent, and instead of going up mana, they go down. Hence Devolve. I like how they showed Murlocs, and they even portrayed them as like the gang leaders for each class, right? So you've got the guy with the Tommy gun, the guy with the little flail, like dagger type thing, and then the other guy, which would be the, I'm not even gonna try to pronounce the name, Kazang or some Kazining. I have no idea. But he'd be the one on the far right. So it's really cool what they did with the artwork here. Gotta admire that. Practicability or like practicality of playing this though, it's good in I think one particular scenario, and that's going to be when your opponent has a lot of death rattle minions out, or any card that has an ability that is just really annoying, right? Like a Ysera, a Sylvanas, a Rag. So you can basically devolve that and make it so it's probably not going to be a minion with a really strong death rattle like Sylvanas. But the problem is you don't actually deal with the board state, you're just making it slightly worse and you're spending a card to do it. And Shaman already has a lot of AoE. You know, you have Maelstrom Portal, you have Lightning Strike, you have Elemental Destruction, you have Hex, which is like the cheapest free removal ever. It's 3 mana, get whatever you want away, and it transforms it, so they can't even like get a death rattle or anything from it. It's not like an execute or a shield slam, even though they do cost 1 and 2 now. They still get the ability of a death rattle, right? But Hex just says no. So I really don't see where a devolve fits into there right now, right? Like, it just doesn't seem that great in my opinion. Heading over to Druid, here's some more of that Jade Golem synergy. It's a 1-drop Jade Idol, so it reminds me of Raven Idol, of course. And it's a choose 1, summon a Jade Golem, or shuffle 3 copies of this card into your deck. So I'm sure a lot of people kind of freaked out when they saw this, right? They're like, holy shit, rip control decks, rip fatigue decks, we're going down. So I mean, that's anybody's first reaction when looking at this card, right? Like, it puts 3 cards into your deck, and those 3 cards could potentially summon 3 Jade Golems, which if a Jade Golem's already a 5/5, you're basically getting a 6/6, a 7/7, and an 8/8 for 1 mana, which is absolutely insane. But the problem is you have to live long enough, because, all right, as we know, Elise, for example, puts a card in your deck. The chances of drawing that card soon are very low, and then it puts another one in your deck. So ideally, you're using a card like Jade Golem to put in 3 more copies of this card in your deck, which means you're a card down in your hand. You gain no ability from this whatsoever other than to draw another Jade Idol, and then you can put, granted, another one in your deck. So eventually, after you've drawn enough cards, you'll just keep drawing Jade Idols, and you'll just keep flopping those guys on the board, just Jade Golem, Jade Golem, Jade Golem. But the amount of time it's going to take for that actually to happen is going to be, it's not going to occur a lot. Granted, if you play against maybe a Fatigue Priest, a Fatigue Warrior, any sort of control-based class, being able to pull this off is a lot easier. But if this deck goes against, in my opinion, from what this ability sees and what we've seen with Elise and cards like that, where putting a card in your deck and then the chances of drawing it, plus the card already has to be big enough for you to want to choose Jade Golem and not to put 3 more copies in your deck. And especially if you're like behind on the board, summoning a Jade Golem because it has no ability isn't going to get you further if you're already behind. So I think, granted, control decks, yes, this is a good card against control decks, but like an aggro or a mid-range deck, it's just gonna get destroyed, right? Like summoning a 2/2, a 3/3, even a 4/4 or a 5/5 for 1 mana against most aggro decks. So like, I don't care what you summon, face is the place, and then they just wreck you, and it doesn't matter what you do, especially with cards that don't have taunt, and they don't have an ability when they come out to somehow either minimize the damage coming to them or to kind of deal with the creatures at that current state. Granted, it can make trades, but it has to live long enough to do that, and if they just power overwhelming a 1/1 or they hex it, I mean, you know, you're kind of in a bad situation there. So, really good card. Don't get me wrong. It's a very good card, but it won't be good against every deck. It's not like Jade Golem deck's gonna wreck the meta. Like, it has its weakness, and that's against aggro or maybe a faster-paced mid-range deck. But this card, a Jade Golem Druid, would be aimed at a control meta. So, because I'm assuming Priest is going to be very strong. Priest is a very control-based class. Therefore, you would counter that with this maybe Jade Golem Druid. So that not only did they make a class really good, said it was most likely going to be control, they've built a counter into the same expansion, which is, you know, it's cool, but it really affects my Control Warrior, which is I'm very sad, because Control Warrior, as you guys know, is my favorite class and deck. Jade Blossom. It's a 3-drop. Summon a Jade Golem, so again, some Jade Golem synergy. Gain an empty mana crystal. So it's basically a wild growth attached to a Jade Idol, right? You're summoning a Jade Golem and you're getting a mana crystal, but it's just a 2-in-1. So it's a good card. We'll probably see 2 of these in Jade Golem Druid, no doubt. Jade Behemoth, a 6-drop, 3/6 taunt. All right, so we got an ability. Battle Cry, summon a Jade Golem. So again, that Jade Golem synergy within Druid. As again, Druid's most likely going to be one of the stronger Jade Golem classes, in my opinion, or maybe one of the more endgame Jade Golem classes. Maybe they'll be like, maybe the Rogue's like a tempo Jade Golem, and we got Druid, which is like a late game Jade Golem, and we got Shaman, which is like an aggro Jade Golem. I don't know what they're doing. Haven't played with the cards yet, but you only can go by what you see. I don't think this guy's actually going to be played, right? Because you look at the stats, 6 mana, 3/6. They're fucking horrible. Taunt, that makes it a little better. Probably still not good enough. And then Battlecry, summon a Jade Golem. But we've already understood that Jade Golem, the mana cost associated with this is about 1, max 2, which means you're playing a card. So if we, let's say we decrease the card value of this by 1 or 2. So it's a 4-drop, 3/6. Good. 5-drop, 3/6. Questionable. So we're gonna have to figure out how much mana a Jade Golem is worth, and especially a Battlecry summon a Jade Golem, which means it can be comboed with Bran for now until Bran rotates out. So I think maybe a one of, but I'm not really sure. In my opinion, this is one of the weaker Jade Golem abilities. Heading over to Priest, we've got one card, and one card they've needed for a very long time, and that's the Mana Geode. It's a 2-drop, 2/3, so it's, of course, the stats are decent. And whenever this minion is healed, summon a 2/2 crystal. So with it having 3 HP, I mean, obviously against maybe like aggro-based decks, it's going to take 1 or 2. You're going to heal it back up. It's going to create a 2/2 for your 2 mana. From your hero power, you've generated a 2/2 creature. I think it's decent. Is it going to be found in every priest deck? Probably not. Is it going to be found in specific priest decks? Most likely. It's a 2-drop. And so what's good about what I think they're trying to push here is cards that are good in certain decks. If we look at Tunnel Trog, for example, Tunnel Trog is probably good in every Shaman deck that you're going to build. Like, it's just good. You don't not include it, right? Lightning Bolt, Hex, Lightning Storm, like all of these cards are basically auto includes into decks, right? Swipe for Druid. You just can't get around not playing it. But cards like this, like not playing it doesn't hurt you because you can put in another card that may be better in your deck for whatever deck you're playing, but maybe some decks this is the best card to play. So like having certain decks play certain cards and they're not found in every single fucking deck of that class is nice, right? It adds variety, it adds some like freshness. You're not seeing the same cards being played in every version of the same deck with some minor 5-card tweak and they name it something different. So I really I'm looking forward, hopefully, to what this brings, right? Like, it's not going to happen right away. When the new expansion hits, there's going to be 2 kinds of players. The players who ignore all new cards, use the same top tier decks right now, and they crush the fucking everybody who's trying to deck test. You got those guys. And then you got people like me who are going to try these new cards, build decks that are probably shit at first, but will get better over time, and we'll get crushed by those tier 1 players playing mid-range Shaman like, oh, look how good I am, wrecking all these plebs. It's just like, dude, okay, whatever, man. But yeah, I don't know where that rant came from, but anyway. Heading on to Rogue, the Jade Shuriken, the 2-drop, deal 2 damage, combo, summon a Jade Golem. Basically going to be you're going to play 2 of these in a Jade Golem Rogue deck. I don't think there's a way around it. As we know, Rogue is a very combo-based, class. The combo being able to summon a Jade Golem, normally for 2 mana, you're dealing 3-ish damage, right? I think this should be reversed, in my opinion. I think this should be a 2 mana, summon a Jade Golem, combo, deal 2 damage. Because we've distinguished Jade Golem is worth 1 to 2 mana, but deal 2 damage is most of the time worth 2 mana. I don't know. We'll have to see how it works out, but I think it would... I don't know. I'm not a huge Rogue player, so you guys will be able to tell me better than not. But I just feel like, what if you can't combo and you're looking to... I don't know. We'll see. It's a good card, though. For Jade Golem Rogue, perfect card. The Jade Swarmer. The 2-drop 1/1 stealth death rattle, summon a Jade Golem. So again, some more Jade Golem synergy. You're basically, again, for 2 mana, he's a 1/1 in stats. Most 1/1s or most 1 mana cards have, 1/1, 2/1, 2/1, or 1/2, or 2/1, or 1/1. So death rattle, summon a Jade Golem. Jade Golem, again, worth around 1 mana, 1.5 mana. So... Heading over to the neutrals, not a lot of rogue, and there hasn't been a lot of shaman yet. So, and there hasn't been the warrior legendary or the warlock. There's a lot of cards still not announced, a lot of big cards that haven't been announced yet, such as the legendaries for a lot of popular classes. I'm interested to see what the shaman and warrior one are. Hopefully they're useful. Or hopefully the warrior one is useful. Okay, so we're the Hosen healer, the 4-drop, 2/6, very similar to this kind of looks like a tournament medic. Not it. Is it tournament medic? It's a guy. He's a 1/8 for 4 mana. Heal yourself, or no, inspire and then heal yourself for 2. Anyway, battle cry, restore a minion to full health. I don't know. I don't see it. I think it's just a bad 4-drop. I wouldn't even say it's a bad 4-drop. It's a 2/6. It's not terrible statted. Like, it's not like a 2/3 or something like that. It's just not, it's mediocre. I think its ability is, it's kind of hard to think of a deck that's going to work really well with right now, but I think it will have a use, but I just don't know what that is yet. The Jade Spirit, the Shaman, Rogue, I think Paladin, right? And, 4-drop, 2/3, battle cry, summon a Jade Golem. So a 2 mana, 2/3, and it has battle cry, summon a Jade Golem. So Jade Golem is being valued at about 2.5 mana here, 2 mana. But normally a 2/3 is going to have some ability, and that ability is normally, like if we look at Flame Juggler or I don't know, just some shit like that, dealing 1 damage is worth half a mana, right? I don't know, somewhere in there. So it not having ability makes the Jade Golem have to be a little bit more. So will it be found in Jade Golem decks? I think so, if the class already doesn't have enough summoned Jade Golems, right? So if we have a class that has like, let's say one class has like 8 Jade Golem abilities and the other one has like 4 to 5, they're gonna have to play something like this. But the classes who maybe have 8 have better substitutions to summoning Jade Golems, unless you're just going for the frenzy of Jade Golems. Just like, Jade Golem, you get a Jade Golem, he gets a Jade Golem, check on your seats, everybody gets a Jade Golem. So unless you're going for that, I think it's gonna be found in certain decks, not everyone. The Fight Promoter, the 6-drop 4/4 stats are not with this guy. Battle cry, if you control a minion with 6 or more health, draw 2 cards. If you control a minion with 6 or more health, draw 2 cards. So drawing 2 cards, if we look at Arcane Intellect and cards of that nature, drawing 2 cards is worth 3-ish mana. For this, you're substituting a decent ability with ability that requires you to have criteria being met. You're losing basically 2/2 in stats, because most 6-drops have at least a 6/6, unless they're Sylvanas or Emperor, which have amazing abilities, game-changing abilities. I don't think this guy's good at all, in my opinion. Like, just the requirements, the effect, the mana cost, and the stats, it doesn't line up with what's currently out there to be competitive. So I'm not feeling it. You have to, with new cards, you kind of just have to take what's out there currently and compare. We can't say it's going to fit in this deck or that deck. We can make the assumptions, but I just try to, like, compare it to what's out there, and then what is the ability worth in mana? How much does the card cost? And does it make sense? And this one just doesn't. Burgly Bully? Burgly Billy. Bully. A 5-drop, 4/6. So stats aren't terrible. The 4/5 is a Chillwind Yeti, and that costs 4. So you're basically getting 1 more mana for 1 more, or 1 more HP for 1 more mana. But he has an ability that's actually really cool, and it's whenever your opponent casts a spell, add a coin to your hand. So we've seen similar cards to this. I wouldn't say similar in a sense, but cards that, first of all, add a coin to your hand, whether they attack your opponent face, or they die like Tomb Pillager, or you've got the Rockjaws. I don't remember their names, but they're 2-drop, 2/3. Whenever your opponent casts a spell, gain 1 attack, and then there's another one that's a 3/5. Whenever your opponent, I think it's Rockjaw, and it's whenever your opponent casts a spell, gain +2 attack. So this has a very similar, whenever your opponent casts a spell, add a coin to your hand. And I'm pretty sure the other rogue card, the rogue legendary, Prince something, he does something. Whenever your opponent casts a spell, give you a copy, give them a coin. So we've seen similar abilities to this before, nothing crazy. Well, your opponent most likely is going to have to use a spell to get rid of this guy, unless they, by turn 5, have the ability to make trades into this. And if they do, this guy does have 4 attack. So they're most likely going to be killing off those minions to make trades. And if they use like a fireball, you're going to get a coin. So I'm assuming you'd play this in a rogue, no doubt, right? So it's interesting why they didn't make it a rogue card, because rogue benefits the most from having a coin. Like, I just don't see, maybe a druid, this would be okay because ramping, but rogue is basically where this guy's gonna be at, right? I think it's okay, but I just don't think it's that great. Tomb Pillager is just too good to like say this card is good right now. When Tomb Pillager leaves, maybe this is the replacement. The next one, pretty good in my opinion. The 6-drop 5/3. She belongs to the tri-class, so she goes into Shaman Paladin. I think that's Paladin. And then Rogue. And it's Battlecry and Death Rattle, Summon, and Jade Golem. So Jade Golem, as we know, worth 1 to 2 mana. She's 5/3 for 6 mana. So the stats aren't there, but you get her ability when she dies. And she has a Death Rattle. So she synergizes with N'Zoth. Battlecry synergizes with Bran. The 5 attack allows her to trade into big creatures, but 3 HP is bad too because she can get Frostbolted, Arcane Blast, Ping, Wrath. And there's a lot of cards that can kill her if, you know, they have them in their hand. So, again, I think she'll be played. She'll definitely be a one of, in my opinion, any Jade Golem deck. Being able to summon 2 Jade Golems. First when she gets brought out, which is a tempo play, and then when she dies, which is sort of a recovery mechanism. Solid card. I think she's going to be really annoying. I think she's going to be a really good card. All right, so that wraps up our neutrals, which wraps up all of the cards that we needed to cover currently. And as more come out, I'll try to keep you guys updated with those. I've been posting these around, I want to say 4 to 5 days apart, not to bombard you with cards, but just enough to kind of fulfill your card need, right? We're hitting around that 10 to 20 card zone, which I think is good. So if there's anything I missed out or anything you want to add to this this particular card review, let me know in the comment section below, as I can't really cover everything. I can only cover basically highlights of what I think. So with that said, hopefully you've enjoyed, and as always, I'm Warshack, and happy whatever the hell day it is.